The Earth you see today is actually a disguise after extensive plastic surgery. This is the true face of the original Earth. 4.6 billion years ago, Earth was not a blue home, but a scorching, burning demon. If you were thrown here, you wouldn't even last 0.1 seconds. But don't worry, you wouldn't die of heat stroke. You would be instantly vaporized. At this time, the Earth's surface temperature was as high as 1,200 degrees Celsius, hotter than a steel furnace. There was absolutely no land. Beneath your feet was a magma tsunami, 1,000 kilometers deep. This is equivalent to throwing 300 Mount Everests into a hot pot, and they wouldn't even make a bubble. Here, a day lasted only 6 hours. If you looked up, you would find that the sky was not raining water, but liquid gold melted by high temperatures. Even more desperate, asteroids fell from the sky every few minutes. The largest one was named Theia. Its collision with Earth carried the power of 100 million atomic bombs exploding simultaneously. The debris from this planet formed the current moon. This is not a sci-fi movie. This is Earth's dark history, and also its most mysterious and violent period. It is called the Hadean Eon. This name sounds like a dark curse, but it is not a myth. It is Earth's infancy. You think Earth grew up slowly, but in reality, it was constantly beaten up as a child. The early solar system was like a chaotic pool table. Countless leftover celestial fragments dashed around wildly, and Earth was the biggest target. This period is known as the Late Heavy Bombardment. During this time, on average every few decades to a century, an asteroid, powerful enough to destroy modern civilization, would hit the Earth. Every impact would shatter and melt the solidified crust, turning it back into magma. Dust clouds mixed with lava steam rose into the air, blocking out the sun and plunging Earth's sky into darkness for decades. The Earth at this time was a high-pressure gas chamber. Even if you were agile enough to dodge the meteorite bombardment, the moment you stopped to take a breath, congratulations, you would die even more miserably. The atmospheric pressure back then was more than 100 times what it is now. This feeling is like standing thousands of meters deep on the ocean floor. The immense pressure would instantly crush your lungs. Furthermore, there was no oxygen in the air, only carbon dioxide, methane, and hydrogen sulfide. The entire sky presented a suffocating dark red color. Without the protection of the ozone layer, the sun's ultraviolet rays scorched the Earth without obstruction. Any organic molecule on the surface would be shattered to pieces. This was your former home, a superhell gathering high temperatures, high pressure, and toxic radiation. Even if you threw a resilient water bear, tardigrade there, it would turn to ash in an instant. But a key turning point appeared. In this place where even rocks could melt, water actually appeared. In 2014, the US Geological Survey discovered a 4 billion year old zircon crystal in Australia. Through analysis, scientists detected hydroxyl ions. This means that in the early Hadean Eon, liquid water had already appeared on Earth's surface, and not just a drop or two, but a great flood enough to submerge the world. So where did this water come from? Scientists speculate that about 4.4 billion years ago, countless dirty snowballs made of ice floated at the edge of the solar system. They were sucked into the inner solar system by gravity and crashed into Earth. These porters of nature brought massive amounts of ice water to Earth. The ice turned into water vapor the instant it hit, locked in the atmosphere by Earth's gravity. As more and more water vapor accumulated in the atmosphere, saturation reached its limit. A rainstorm destined for the history books was poised to fall. However, before the rain could hit the ground, it was baked dry by the magma and turned back into steam, rushing back into the sky. This cycle continued for millions of years until Earth's heat radiated into space and the surface temperature finally dropped to a critical point. Then, the first true rain in Earth's history finally fell to the ground. But don't celebrate too early. This was a super rainstorm that lasted for millions of years. The rain just kept falling for millions of years. Without a second of pause, the sky seemed to be torn open. Scalding floods poured from the heavens. Every drop of rain was wrapped in deadly acidic substances because sulfides in the atmosphere reacted with the rain to form sulfuric acid. This acid rain and the Great Flood frantically scoured the newly hardened crust. Rocks hissed under the corrosion of the acid. Huge torrents gathered in low-lying areas. As the water level rose higher and higher, those basins that once churned with magma gradually turned into a murky, boiling green ocean. The temperature of this ocean was likely above 80 degrees Celsius. It was simply a giant pot of boiling toxic soup. But don't despise it, because without this pot of hot and sour soup, there would be no you today. At the bottom of this primordial ocean, cracks in the crust spewed out mineral-rich hydrothermal fluids. These vents, known as black smokers, were originally forbidden zones for life. But right there, in this desperate environment of high temperature, high pressure, and total darkness, chemical reactions began to go crazy. Under the influence of lightning, heat energy, and catalysts, inorganic matter accidentally combined to form the first organic molecule. It was like God casually threw a handful of dice and miraculously rolled the cheat code for the game. This was the most primitive spark of life. It was ignited in the depths of hell. The ancestors of us all, the source of all birds, beasts, flowers, and trees, were born in a pot of highly toxic soup. This forces us to re-examine the definition of life. Perhaps life itself is a tenacious fighter that goes against the odds. Under the repeated hammering of this high-pressure environment, Earth also generated an invisible shield, the Earth's magnetic field. It is like an invisible cover that can deflect parts of the solar wind and high-energy particles. It helps the atmosphere not be easily blown away and gives water a better chance to stay on the surface long-term. This is not metaphysics, but hard science that has been constantly explored in recent years. In 2024, MIT studied ancient rocks from Greenland and found rocks from about 3.7 billion years ago that retained traces of an early magnetic field. The lower limit of its strength was close to the magnitude of today's magnetic field. This means that in the era when life was just about to emerge, Earth likely already had a decent umbrella. Earth did not rely solely on luck. It was growing its own armor. With the end of the late heavy bombardment, the Hadean Eon officially came to a close. At this time, Earth had completed a thrilling transformation. Primordial oceans covered most of the surface. Small amounts of oxygen began to appear in the atmosphere. The crust gradually stabilized. The frequency of volcanic activity and asteroid impacts dropped significantly. Life had already taken root in the ocean. From a fireball 4.6 billion years ago to a cradle of life 4 billion years ago, Earth took a full 600 million years to complete this metamorphosis from the Hadean to the Archean Eon. What is the concept of 600 million years? Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for only 160 million years. Human civilization is only a mere few thousand years old. Placed on Earth's timeline, human history doesn't even count as the blink of an eye. The 600 million dark years of the Hadean Eon were Earth's longest and most painful childhood. During this period, it was smashed, scorched, and corroded by acid rain. But it was a blessing in disguise. The collisions forged a stable partner. The moon tempered the initial crust. Millions of years of acid rain brought water that covered the globe. And beside the deep-sea thermal vents, the origin of all life was buried. It can be said that without every destruction in the Hadean Eon, there would be no subsequent rebirth of life. The blood flowing in our bodies today contains water components that may come from that comet that hit Earth 4.6 billion years ago. The calcium in our bones may come from that violent volcanic eruption in the Hadean Eon. We are the witnesses of this planet's history. We are the miracles born from those stars, magma, and violent storms.